Sawyer Robertson is not going to be a good quarterback for the Baylor Bears this year.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
He's going to be a great quarterback for the Baylor Bears this year. Welcome into another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by Monarch Money. I'm your host, Cam Stuart of ESPN Central Texas and the Cam Show on YouTube. Appreciate you guys making this your first listen today and every day. We will go over why Sawyer Robertson is not being overrated at this point and why he will have a tremendous season for the Bears in 2025. We'll actually back it up. Plus, we're going to look at a transfer portal target for Scott Drew and why a conference rival and a former Drew disciple is now swooping in and is probably going to steal him from the Bears. And speaking of stealing, Dave Aranda about to do that to Steve Sarkisian and the Texas Longhorns for one of the top recruits in the 2026 class. At least that's what one expert says. All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. And I mean this, Sawyer Robertson's not going to be a good quarterback for Baylor this year. He's going to be a great one. He's going to have a special season if he stays healthy. Because I was traveling this weekend, and I had a good friend text me, someone who follows Baylor religiously, watches the show every day, knows all his football stuff, like really into it. And he says, look, he says, Cam, I love Sawyer. We all do. But you keep hyping him up. Can we buy into him having an even better season next year? You know, he was texting me. He's like, it's kind of wonky football stuff. I mean, stuff that I didn't even understand necessarily. It was like, he's got holes in his game and here. Like, how do we just expect that he does it again? We've seen Baylor quarterbacks who can't just do it again. Blake Shapen was terrific down the stretch in 21. And obviously the first half of the Big 12 championship game was where it really stood out. But then he didn't go and do it again. Right? Zach Smith in 2016, even when they were losing games and Seth Russell was out for the season, he looked like the next guy. He couldn't do it again. Right? Charlie Brewer did it a couple of times, and then after his best season in 2019, he couldn't do it again in 2020. So it's almost like some PTSD for Baylor fans surrounding the quarterback position. Like, how do we just bank on this guy having a great season again? And all I sent back was Jake Spavital. We all love Jake Spavital. We all know he's one of the best offensive minds in college football. I was over the moon when they hired him last year. He was really my number one choice of any of those guys to come back to Texas. And the reason why is the quarterbacks he's worked with in the past, right? Brandon Weeden, Kyler Murray, Will Grier with some real good years at West Virginia, Geno Smith, Johnny Manziel, Case Keenum. Like, how can you not want your budding quarterback? Well, we didn't know it at the time, right, when Spavital got hired. But how could you not want your budding star of a quarterback in Sawyer Robertson to learn under this guy? And I mentioned this in passing on an episode a few months ago, and I thought it's time to probably just dive deeper into the numbers here. Because what really impresses me the most, because Spav has bounced around a few times. You know, he's been at West Virginia a couple times. He's been at Houston. He's been at A&M. Obviously, Texas State with the head coaching tenure there. He's bounced around a lot. Cal twice. And so there hasn't been a ton of times where he's gotten to work with a quarterback for 2 years and do a whole offseason with them. And, you know, this case even different from years past because now you're likely working with the quarterback of like, who are you going to bring in the transfer portal? But when he does have that time, Jake Spavital cooks. Okay? He really cooks. He was the co-OC, co-quarterbacks coach in 2012 at A&M with obviously Cliff Kingsbury when Johnny Manziel won the Heisman Trophy. And I don't know if any of you watched the Netflix documentary on Johnny Football, but Kingsbury's in there as one of the talking heads, and he's like, "Yeah, we barely had a playbook. Like we just kind of let the kid do what he wanted. You know, we gave him some reads, but there was nothing more than that. It was super basic." And he won the Heisman Trophy. He was fantastic in 2012. We all know that side of the story, but what we don't know is the next year when Jake Spavital becomes the full-time offensive coordinator, does install a playbook, and all of Johnny Manziel's numbers go up. People forget that. He had a better statistical season in 2013 than he had in 2012 as a freshman when he won the Heisman Trophy. His completions went up. His attempts went down, so a better completion percentage. He threw for 400 more yards. He threw for 11 more touchdowns. He did throw some more picks. His rating went up by 18 points. His yards per game went up by over 30 yards. That's under Jake Spavital and under the Jake Spavital playbook, a guy who he was learning under before, but then gets the entire offseason to work with him. And it's not Kingsbury's show anymore. And Kingsbury takes one of the, three most talented quarterbacks in the history of football and makes one bowl game with him? So Jake Spavital, low-key cooked harder than Cliff Kingsbury did in that offseason with Johnny Manziel. And if that doesn't convince you, why don't I take you back to West Virginia? Okay, right before that stop at A&M. 2011, Geno Smith was one of the best quarterbacks in the country as a junior. It was West Virginia's last year in the Big East. And that year, he led the nation in completions for the second year in a row, and attempts, and completion percentage, and yards, and touchdowns, and yards per attempt, and rating, and yards per game. Led the nation in them. And that's, again, under Spavital's tutelage. First year back at West Virginia with Dana Holgorsen. Throws 66% completion percentage, 4,385 touchdowns, yards, 31 touchdowns to just 7 picks. Like, that is a better year than Sawyer Robertson just had. And would you believe me if I told you this dude got better the next year? By the way, if Sawyer plays 13 games, maybe he gets to some of those counting stats. But in 2012, that West Virginia team, that Geno Smith, that was the talk of the country the first 6-7 weeks of the college football season, maybe even more, maybe even deeper into October. Remember, this is the famous 70-63 loss that Baylor had. We saw it firsthand, how good that offense was with Geno Smith and Tavon Austin and some of the other guys there. And that's important to note, that it's second year of Geno Smith under Jake Spavital and the second year that he's had to build around an elite playmaking receiver like Tavon Austin. Am I saying Josh Cameron is top 10 pick Tavon Austin and the world famous highlight tape? No, but he's a damn good receiver in this league. And it's a real bonus for a school like Baylor in this day and age to return your top 3 pass catchers, both of your running backs, along with your quarterback as well. So even after that big time year for Geno Smith in 2011 and goes up a level to the Big 12 in 2012, he has more completions on less attempts. He's 6% more accurate, 71% completion percentage. That led the nation as well. He threw for 11 more touchdowns, threw for less picks, 42-6. Touchdown to interception ratio, that's unfathomable. That's so good. Threw for more yards per attempt, more yards per completion, and a little bit less yards per game with a higher quarterback rating by 12 points. And oh yeah, Sawyer Robertson is already coming in as a deadly accurate passer, who has the highest quarterback percentage, QBR of any returning quarterback in all of college football. He already has that on his side. In fact, he's not as good an athlete as Manziel was, but probably a bit more polished as a passer going into that second season than Manziel was. And Manziel put up some video game numbers. Downfield passing of any returning quarterback, he is second in the country, just half a percentage point behind Drew Aller. Completion percentage on downfield throws. So you've already got a heck of a talented player there. And you add the Jake Spavital effect, and you've seen it. You've seen how these quarterbacks, their numbers have jumped. And I'm just going after the ones he worked with for 2 years. Like Case Keenum in his last year under Spavital was breaking records left, right, and center. And that was his first year with him. And Spavital's already used some comparisons between those guys, Keenum and Sawyer Robertson. I think you'll see a lot of Geno Smith in there too. And Geno was taking over America in that 2012 season until West Virginia petered out a little bit and Manziel wins the Heisman Trophy. But that offense was stupid, and it was led by this same OC and a pretty damn similar quarterback. So should we believe the hype that I've been hyping up and that a lot of Baylor fans have been hyping up for 2025 Sawyer Robertson? You bet your butt you should, man. Bet anything that you should be believing this hype. Sawyer Robertson and Jake Spavital and the other cast and crew of this offense is going to feed families in the Big 12 in 2025. So yes, to answer your question, you should be expecting a step up from Sawyer Robertson, and he's going to deliver it to you. I feel so good about that. I'm hoping Baylor basketball will deliver more players to us before the summer workouts get started. There's one that they've been keying in on the last few weeks, but here comes the Scott Drew disciple to possibly take him right away. We'll tell you who that is next on Locked On Baylor. But first, let me ask you a question. You ever look at that bank account and say, where did all my money go? I know a lot of people were thinking that after the Kentucky Derby this past weekend. Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track, but that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. It isn't just a budgeting app, okay? It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. You stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to quickly check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. And if you're managing money with a partner, it's never been easier than with Monarch Money. You can track shared and personal accounts, you can set those goals together, and you can stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDON, COLLEGE, for half off your first year. Scott Drew has been busy these days, man. He has been real busy on the recruiting trail, obviously mostly in the transfer portal and trying to replace this mess that has been dealt to Baylor basketball through a couple of different reasons that they have no players coming back. None. And we know that this is not the most fruitful part of the transfer portal here. The window is obviously closed. We saw this towards, last season, getting a guy like Marino Dubravcic in the summer. That's probably more what you're looking at this time of year than a Jeremy Roach or a Norchad Obier. Okay, so anybody with any kind of Power 4 experience at this point in the portal is a pretty good get. That's where Devon Ugo Chuku comes in. Ugo Chuku, I think is actually how you say it, from the University of Miami. He's a kid with not a lot of playing time this year. I mean, I shouldn't say that. He was part of the rotation, but he wasn't starting a ton of games, playing 20 minutes a game. He was just a freshman, so he's got years of eligibility left. 5 points a game, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, shot at about 48%. He had a long list of teams that were reaching out to him. Baylor was certainly hot on the trail pretty early on in the process. And now it seems he is starting to narrow it down. Has not ruled out Baylor, but one of the teams that is swept right in like that West Texas wind is the Texas Tech Red Raiders here in the last few days. Grant McCaslin's team, they have made a serious push. The meetings right now for Ugo Chuku is Michigan State, USC, and Tech. Going to get those knocked out over the next few days. And I think this is a really interesting kind of pursuit to look at for both teams, because for Tech, I just don't know how much he's fitting the play style. He's a guy that the good teams in the ACC hunted defensively. There's videos out on Twitter of Duke just hunting him every time down, like the Celtics did with Luka in the finals last year. Right? Like he's got these long arms. That's why he's a gifted rebounder for a guy at his size at only 6'3", and he can disrupt the passing lanes a little bit. but he's just not like a lockdown, get down in the mud kind of defender, which I think Grant McCasland is going to demand of anybody on that team. And I think it's worked really well for Grant McCasland in that Tech program, and for that Tech program through a couple of different coaches. You can't, we talk all about Houston in this conference and how good they are defensively, but you can't go to Tech and not play defense. It's not an option. You can't go to Tech and be a lawn chair out there. That's a team that you can't hunt mismatches against. They do that to you. Tech, Iowa State, Houston, that's what those teams do. Baylor used to do it. Not as much the last couple of years. But he comes in and can be a really good depth piece for either one of these teams. He's not walking into a starting lineup on either one of these teams. If he couldn't do that for Miami, which was a bad team last year, he's certainly not going to do it for even a Baylor, which starts out on a lower plane, much lower plane than Tech does going into 2025-26. So that leaves, the chances of starting at Tech absolutely slim to none. He's not a shooter. He shoots it under 20% from three. 17.6%. As a matter of fact, last time I checked, that's not good. And for a primary ball handler, there are some worries there. 19% assist rate, it's fine, it's good, but a 25% turnover rate. So that's a wash. That's washing out a pretty good assist rate, right? 1 in every 4 times, he can turn the ball over. 1 in every 4 times you put the ball in his hands, he's going to give it to the other team. That's not a starter right there. And certainly his athletic ability is the biggest upside. Like the kid, it has plenty of hops. Again, the arm length is salivating for a team that really loves on-ball pressure, and he should be able to guard guys that are bigger than him defensively because of that advantage. But he's still pretty raw as an offensive player, to the point where you're thinking, he's got to be a ball handler because he sure as heck ain't a shooter. Okay. He's a good finisher at the rim. You kind of get that Rob Wright style of rim finishing offense with a much, bigger player and leaner player at 6'3" with the long arms rather than 6'1" and the rather short arms for Rob Wright, which are, one of the big downsides to his game, and otherwise pretty good game. So you get that back. But if you're Baylor, in a weird way, you still have plenty of open spots, but it might not even be worth it to get a guy like this. And I'm not just saying that as a coping mechanism. Like, you already have your point guards in JJ White and Obi Agbim, and neither of them are very stout defensively. Like, you don't know if you can roll out a lineup with those two guys out there, let alone a different guy who's not that great defensively. And you look at the size and the athleticism and the arms and, the shooting splits and everything, you already have a better version of Devon Ugu Chuku already on your team. You had him last year on the bench. Cameron Carr from Tennessee. You already have him. Like, this is what I was saying about Keelan Marion, the All-American kick returner, wide receiver from BYU that Baylor offered. I was like, you already have him at home. You have a better version in Josh Cameron. For Devon Ugu Chuku, he's obviously one of the biggest names on the market in terms of the transfer portal, especially at this point. But and I'm not going to say ever turn down a guy who is a Sugarland native, a Texas native who's already played in the Power Four. I don't think Baylor's in a position to really do that. But if it comes down to money and to fit, it's like, man, we'd love for you to come here, but we do already have a version of you. We already have you. We need some help in other areas of the team rather than a ball handling guard. We have at least 3 of those. So it would sting if you lose him to a conference rival like Tech, especially a guy who is so close to Scott Drew. But I don't know how much he really helps Tech, and that's a compliment to Tech's team. And I don't know where he fits into this Baylor team. But as we talked about with Jackson Posey on the last episode on Friday, this is not done. They need to continue cooking here. Like they need a couple of guys. They still need some kind of slash forward depth, is what I call them, wing guys. They obviously don't grow on trees in the transfer portal, at least not the good ones. And you need some defensive guys here in the backcourt specifically. You've probably got one or two more backcourt spots to fill. They've got to be good enough defensive players, and you've got to get good defensive contributions out of guys like Cam Carr, and hopefully Obi Agbim and JJ White can combine to be a good defender. But we'll see. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Is this actually a good fit for Tech or Baylor for Devon? Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, find us on YouTube and wherever you find your podcasts as well. Locked On Baylor rolls on. We are talking about some recruiting of a different kind, the football kind, the high school kind, and why Dave Aranda is about to get one over on the Texas Longhorns and what that means for Baylor football. It's coming up next on Locked On Baylor. But first, today's episode of Locked On Baylor is brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. One more, SH, the numeral 5 for 5% off your first order at supplyhouse.com. We get caught up in transfer portal season. Little do we know, some of the top prospects in America on the football field are setting their official visits and are getting close to making their decisions before their senior year. One of those guys is Jordan Clay from Madison High School in San Antonio, one of the best wide receivers in all of America, top 15 receiver, top 100 recruit overall. And for months and months and months, all we heard about Jordan Clay was Texas Longhorn. Of course. 4-star guy, nearly a 5-star guy by the metrics, one of the best receivers in the country, playing in San Antonio. Steve Sarkisian and Arch Manning up there in Austin. It's a no-brainer. Of course, Arch Manning probably won't be playing with Jordan Clay. No-brainer. Until you hear what the experts have to say. Because over the weekend, some big-time news for Baylor on the recruiting front. They get the tweet out there from On3 Recruits. This is from Chad Simmons, one of On3's top recruiting experts. Their latest projections, has Jordan Clay, the 4-star receiver, going to Baylor over the Texas Longhorns. Now, he will officially visit both in June, right? You get the 3 official visits. That's 2 of them for Jordan Clay. And this would be a pretty major recruiting upset. Even though Baylor's coming off a real good season, even though they've got, a real attractive succession line at quarterback, a heck of an offensive coordinator in Jake Spavital, and a program that is committed to winning games on the offensive side of the football, at least right now, that's still Texas that we're talking about. As good a season as Baylor had, Texas played in the SEC championship. Texas played in the Final Four of the college football playoff for the 2nd year in a row. How on earth is Baylor going to land a prized wide receiver recruit over the Texas Longhorns? Do I need to rehash it again? Because as of right now, they're still going to have Jake Spavital for the 2026 season. I mean, that could be up for debate by the end of a successful 25 season. You're going from one of the best quarterbacks in the country in Sawyer Robertson to a top 3 dual threat quarterback recruit out of high school in Walker White. You've still got a team and a program that is committed to having that that high-powered, high-octane, fast-paced, high-scoring style of offense. Not to say that Texas doesn't either. Not to say that. But Jordan Clay has seen some of the best recruits in the state of Texas over the last few years flip from schools like SMU and A&M and TCU to go to Baylor. So what I'm saying is, obviously, is Texas still the big dog on the block in the state? Yeah, they are. They've made back-to-back Final Fours. But what you've also seen this year is that Baylor can win some football games with high-powered offense, and they really value the wide receiver position again, just like they did 10 years ago when they were consistently churning out the best wide receivers in college football. You're seeing that commitment there again. And this would be a major recruiting win for Baylor. I mean, look, we all know the line. It's like the Bart Simpson meme, right? Oh, say the line, Texas fans, in the comment section. Oh, Baylor celebrating they got this guy. We didn't even want him. Still a high school player. We didn't want him. No one in their right mind's picking Baylor over Texas. Well, according to the experts, it's about to happen. So hug your Longhorn friends if you're still friends with them, because they're going to need all the support they can get when Jordan Clay picks Baylor over Texas. Because the gap has closed significantly. This is not 2023. In 2023, no one in their right mind, I thought, should have been picking Baylor over the Texas Longhorns as a prize football recruit. It's not that way anymore. And we know how well Dave Aranda and Keenan Hall and Aaron Hunt and all these guys have done on the recruiting trail. This would be one of the biggest coups of them all. You know, last year getting Taz Williams, another wide receiver, to commit to Baylor when it certainly looked like it was going to be Michigan, the defending national champions. That was the first kind of domino to fall. You've seen some big-time recruits commit to Baylor since then, and it doesn't look like it's going to stop. The